All right, so today we are doing a full polish of the RS6 as we get ready for complete paint protection film. We're going to do all of the surfaces. So I'm just going to kind of walk you through the process that I went through to do this paint correction. Now, this was a brand new car, it was in pretty good shape. And so I'm just starting off with a foam cannon bath. There was something on the car, a little bit of wax or something from the dealership. So the only thing I'm doing here that's a little different is I've mixed some dish detergent directly into the foam cannon. And I'm going to spray that on here and I let it dwell for several minutes to drip off. And man, I could just sit here and watch soap dripping off that car. It's something about a foam cannon and letting the soap drip off that I just really like to see. But normal soap otherwise in the foam cannon and using Adams again inside just with that dish detergent is enough to strip whatever was on there from the dealership. So I'm just going to go around here and wash the car off, get it really clean. Now, if you're getting ready to do a paint protection film, you really want to make sure that you've got the car perfect. And so even at this first stage here of washing the car, I'm going ahead and I'm looking at the surfaces, I'm checking things out, I'm seeing, starting to get an idea of how much correction is going to be needed on this particular car. And overall, I was pretty happy with the car. It had about 700 miles on it here. There were a couple of spots that I'll show you later that I thought were scratches, but it turned out they weren't. And the paint was in really good shape. One thing that's nice about white is that when you get a nicely polished white car, there's a lot of depth to the color, a lot of depth to the visuals, and you can still get a decent reflection out of it. Obviously, it's not going to be that mirror reflection that you're going to see with a black car, but it's going to look really, really good, and you'll see that here at the end of the video. So I'm glad I took the time. It was just a nice morning outside to go spend 4 or 5 hours washing and polishing the car and getting it ready. Most places, when they're doing paint protection film, they will include in the price of your film a light polish of the car. If you need to do multi-stage compounding, it might cost you a little bit of extra, but most places will include that. But for me, I wanted to go ahead and do it myself. So right here, I've got the car clean and I'm just inspecting the car. Now, a lot of people do this as they're going around, but here I'm trying to make a determination of how bad are the scratches. So I'm taking a light and going around and looking at the entire car to get an idea for what's the pad I need, what's the polish I need. And here to zoom in, I'm looking at the reflection, not the light, the reflection, and I'm looking for the clarity that you see there in that reflection. It was really good on this entire car. You can see there really good clarity on that reflection for a brand new car. Sometimes even new cars you see will have some marring and some scratching straight out of the factory. But I went around the whole car and didn't really find anything that was concerning. Here there was a spot that was a little bit of a scratch, I thought, but I just hit that with some tar and sap remover and it wiped right up. So it was just some sort of, something that had buffed against the surface. There were a couple of spots on the hood, so I'm going to take a little bit extra time here. I think somebody set a purse down on the hood or something while it was in the dealership showroom and pulled it across because there was kind of a little bit of a light scratch. It turned out to not really be a scratch. Again, it was something that just came up with the tar and sap remover. So I've inspected the car now and determined that it's in really good shape. It's going to be very light polished, so I'm going to be able to single step this car. And if you're trying to figure out what do I need, how much polish do I need, what aggressiveness of polish, what aggressiveness of compound, it's really just experience. This is a brand new car. It was in great shape. I'm just trying to do a little bit extra to clarity before I take it in for the paint protection film. And I didn't see anything that looked like it would need compounding or would need a more serious polish. So here I'm just taping up some of the surfaces. Got really lucky with this car because it has the black optics trim. Most of the areas like around the windows that you would normally have to tape up, and it can take a while to tape a car. I didn't have to do those because those were all painted glossy black, and I'm going to polish them anyway to get them looking really good. We did end up putting paint protection film on all of those glossy black pieces. And so there wasn't a whole lot of taping that had to happen here, just a little bit on the roof area and then coming down the windows a little bit. You'll notice I'm not going to go ahead and tape off the headlights or the sharp edges on this car. If you have an older car or something that's been polished multiple times, or if you're going into it with a compound, I would definitely go ahead and do those areas because you can easily burn through some of these sharper edges that you see like these on the front of the fender. But for my car, it's brand new. I know the paint's in good shape. I'm doing a very light polish here, so I've put several beads on the pad and I'm just going to kind of smear it around. I haven't done anything to prime the pad. It's a brand new pad, and so I'm just smearing it around on a very low speed, and then I'm going to pull it off the paint and go ahead and put a few more beads, just pea size, not a whole lot of polish. And I'm using as a product here a medium polish compound, kind of a finishing pad. I'm sorry, a medium um, finishing pad, and then I'm using Sonak's Perfect Finish. So its Perfect Finish is just a really user-friendly polish, lightweight, will bring you great clarity, and then pretty light pad, so not a cutting pad or anything. And I'm only polishing here on about speed 3.5. This is a Flex Orbital polisher that I've been using for about 10 years or so. And now there's some other ones that have come and started to be imported, but this was one of kind of the original ones in the orbitals to get imported about 10 years ago. So again, on these edges right here, because I've got a light pad, because I'm just using a finishing polish and low speed, I'm not worried about burning through these edges. But if you have these edges and you're using something heavier, consider getting a really thin piece of blue painter's tape and taping up that edge, because the paint does tend to be thinnest on the edges and you can burn through it. And you can, just cause issues with your paint because the weight of the polishing and the weight of the polisher will actually rest most on that edge. So if you're using something that's going to cut, protect these edges, protect your headlights for the UV protection. Again, here, I'm not too worried about it because it's a light pad, a light polish. And I'm only doing 50% overlapping passes. I'll do one pass up and down, and I'll do one pass left to right, and that's it. That's all that I determined that I needed. When you're polishing, you always want to do the least possible to get the result that you're looking for. So don't start with a heavy cutting compound. Don't start with a heavy cutting pad. Start with something lighter on the worst parts of the car that you can find and see if you're able to get the correction that you're looking for, without removing too much paint and doing too much of a cutting. So, of course, I've got the cord wrapped over my shoulder. That's just really to keep it out of the way. A lot of people say you should do that to avoid scratching the paint, and I guess that's possible. I don't really know how a cord would scratch the paint. It's really just to keep it out of the way and prevent you from tripping over it. Good habit to get into there. And again, I haven't taped up that headlight. I'm just being careful and not getting too close. This is a brand new car, so I'm just trying to bring out some clarity. There wasn't any scratches or anything close to that headlight that I was worried about. And so I'm going to go ahead and go over the entire car here. And this process, it took me about 4.5 hours to do the whole thing, including washing it. The polishing portion of it was about 2.5 to 3 hours of that time. So, take your time. I'm going to use a mixture here of isopropyl alcohol. I've diluted this 5-to-1. You don't need a ton of alcohol. I cut it. It's not that it's a cost thing. It's not very expensive at Walmart, but it smells really strong to use straight isopropyl alcohol. So I've cut it, and I'm just going to wipe off this first panel here using a brand new Pluffle towel, and then I'll give it a good inspection, and I'm going to see, did I get, the scratches out that I wanted. Now, again, I didn't really have scratches, so I'm just doing this for additional clarity and kind of peace of mind, because I am going to paint protection film the entire car. And so why not just go ahead and make sure that all the surfaces are perfect before you take it in. So wiping down that panel, taking a good look at it, don't go and polish half of the car and then start to look at it. I would encourage you, if you're going to do a multi-stage polish, if you're going to do like a compound with a cutting pad and then hit it with a finishing polish after, especially if you're new to polishing, do one door or do a half of a door in both stages. Go ahead and do the compound, then go ahead and do the finish polish and see if it comes out the way that you want it to before, committing to do the entire car that way. A lot of angles on this RS6 here. It would be really nice if I had a smaller polisher, a 3-inch or 3.5-inch nano, to get into some of these angles where the side skirts come in. But unfortunately, I don't, and it's not something that I think I'm going to get, because although I've polished a number of cars, I'm just a hobbyist. I'm only polishing probably a car every couple of years, not that often. I tend to polish the cars, get them really good, and then ceramic coat them, which I've found protects them and allows that polish, the paint, to stay in really good shape from the polish that I did a couple years ago. And then, if I start to see some issues cropping up, I may repolish it. But, some of my vehicles, I've successfully polished them 4 or 5 years ago. And just keeping the ceramic coating topped, they are still in really, really good shape. Even black cars, if you're super careful with the way that you wash the car and you don't take it through any of the drive-through washes or anything, you can keep paint in really good shape for a long time, and you shouldn't feel the need to be polishing your car every year, every 2 years, or every 3 years. Again, the least amount of polishing that you can get away with is what you're always looking to do. So I'm going to work all the way around the car. I'm paying particular attention here to the piano black trims. Those are some spots that always get scratched. You probably noticed there my towel fell on the ground, fell off the bench that I was sitting on there. And so, of course, that one got put to the side and I got a fresh one out. If you drop your towel during this process, don't shake it out and keep using it. It's time to get a new towel. The last thing you want is where you have perfectly naked paint with no protection on it whatsoever, and you've got a little rock in your perfectly polished paint, and then you're dragging that all around the car and finding out at the end that you were just creating new damage as you went. This is one of my favorite ways to look at the car. I mean, the rear of this car with the way the fender flares stick out and that RS6 badging in the black. I mean, I could just sit here and look at this for a while. It's a gorgeous car. I really like the way it looks, and I'm so happy that Audi brought it over here to America so that we can enjoy it. I saw some of these. I was over in Germany a few years ago, and I saw them, and honestly, I didn't think we would get them. I just didn't think that we would ever bring them over. I would love it if Audi would bring over the RS4 Avant. We used to have the S4 Avant way back with the B5, and I had a couple of friends that had those and really liked them. But the RS6 is it's a super special car for us, and it's one that works really well for our family and the way that we need to get around. Coupled with, me being kind of a track enthusiast that's raced cars for more than 10 years now and doesn't really want to be seen or experienced driving in a minivan or anything like that. So again, on the back here, it'd be really nice to have a nano polisher, but not too big of a deal if you don't have one. I still think that you can get to all these areas with a 5.5. And don't freak out too much about getting right up to the edge of where all of the surfaces meet, right? So the chances that there are scratches that are significant in that last quarter inch between your headlight or that last quarter inch between your emblems, pretty low, especially on a new vehicle like this. I removed the rear license plate you see, but I did not remove the emblems because I had determined that the paint was in good enough shape that it wasn't worth the effort to remove them. We will remove those for doing the paint protection film though, so that there aren't any cutouts around it. And it's just a super clean look of not really being able to tell that the film is on there at all, which is, the look I'm looking for. I don't want to see the paint protection film. I've never liked when you see a car that has a clear bra with that seam going across the hood. It's just, it's not a good look. So continuing to work around the car in the Sonex Perfect Finish, really happy with that product. It's cleaning up really nicely. It's pretty high humidity and fairly warm this morning when I'm out doing the polishing, probably 80% humidity. And sometimes you can get caking issues and a lot of dust with other polishes. I didn't have anything like that here. And now I wasn't really working the product long enough for it to dry out because I was just doing a really minor correction. But even when I've worked this product a lot longer, trying to do a little bit more correction rather than just a finishing polish, I've never had any issues with it caking and dusting everywhere and just kind of being difficult to work with. So working around the doors, you can see I divide doors up, and this is what I recommend, work small sections. Here I'm dividing the door up kind of into at least a top and a bottom, if not into 4 sections, doing a vertical pass, overlapping 50%, and then a horizontal pass overlapping 50%. And that's how I'll go around the car. It also just helps with figuring out where you are. I mean, sometimes, I can kind of zone out when polishing a car for a while, and you might forget, well, did I do this section or not? So breaking the doors down into little grid patterns is something that I like to do to make sure that I'm covering all the spots and to keep track of where I'm going. If you're using polishes that are a little bit more difficult to work with, breaking it down and making sure that you're wiping off door by door is also important because, again, they can cake and get stuck on. And I've had experiences with other polishes that do that and are very difficult to remove. And then you end up putting enough force into trying to remove your polish that you wonder if you're scratching the paint. So here I feel pretty good. I'm going to go ahead. You see I've done a couple of doors and the front fender. And so I'm going to work a larger section and then just wipe it off at once. And at this point, I've already done 2/3 of the car, and I know pretty well that the procedure that I'm using is working well and not having any issues. When I got to the hood, this was the area where I thought I had some scratching, and so I took a little bit extra care here just to make sure that the hood was really good. If you're gonna paint protection film your car, please, please do not put a seam across the middle of your hood. It is worth the incremental extra money to go ahead and wrap the entire hood and have the hood look seamless. On a white car, you're probably not going to see the seams that much, but any car that's red or black, you're going to see that seam, and stuff is going to collect in it. Dirt's going to collect right on the edge of it, and it's just not it's not a good look. You can start to see here, looking down the left side of the vehicle where I've already polished, really good clarity there in the reflection of the soap buckets. Really happy with the way that turns out. It can be difficult to get a white car to reflect like that. And so I'm happy with the way this one turned out, with, getting really good clarity in that reflection, and then again, nice depth to the paint there. So wiping it all off, I was really happy with the way the hood came out. Didn't see any issues. Again, on the front, the Nano would be great. I know I've said that a few times, but when you get a car like this, these newer cars, there's so many angles on the front, so many angles on the side skirts, the chin spoilers, etc., that it does make it more difficult to get into them with this larger orbital. So just kind of take your time and work through, because the risk here is really less that you will miss a spot, because I don't think on a new vehicle it's going to be that big of a deal if you miss a tiny spot here or there. It's more that you've got a bigger machine and you don't want to accidentally dent anything or damage anything or have the machine bumping it up against another section of the paint because you're trying to get it into a tight spot. So just take your time, and it'll come out great. So here I'm doing a final inspection, just walking around the car, seeing if there's anything that I missed. I'm gonna be sealing the entire car up, and so if there's anything I see, this is the time to go in and correct it. Just taking the tape off, admiring the car, looking at it, enjoying it. Soft closed doors right there. You can see that it's one of those goofy features that you read about and you think, well, why would I ever need that? And then as soon as you have it, you just immediately get in the habit of kind of pushing the door shut, and it goes. And as soon as it clicks, the car will suck the door shut the last little bit. So a cool feature that I've grown to really like, even though I probably wouldn't have paid for it as an individual feature. It just happened to come with the package that I wanted. And now I'm really liking it and glad that I have it. So here I'm finishing getting up all the tape, the white on black, looking really, really good. I'm feeling good about the car being ready. I didn't have any rock chips on the front of the car, even though I'd already put about 600 miles on the car, maybe 700 miles at this time. So if you're going to paint protection a new car, try to get it in as soon as you can, because once you get those rock chips on the front, obviously they're going to be there even if you put the paint protection film over them. They're going to be trapped underneath that surface. Hope you all enjoyed this video. Like and subscribe. Appreciate it to everyone who has done that. If you're thinking about polishing your car, don't be afraid. You can definitely do it. And I will show you all the next video as soon as we pick it up from the paint protection film and see how everything turns out. Thanks.